Hi, and welcome to this version of TinyTableauTips with me, the Tableau Jedi from Norway, Tore Levensen. And today I'm continuing my series of tips on calculated fields, calculation editor, and today the focus is on grand total or totals in general, plus, of course, a few extra tips. So we're looking at sales for each subcategory in here. If I go to my analytics pane next to my data pane, I do have my totals available. If I start dragging this in, you see at the moment I can't add subtotals because, well, I only have one level of subcategories or one level of a dimension, but I can add column grand totals. See that I get a grand total of 2.3 million. If I would like to move this to the top, which I prefer to do, especially if you have a big table, you can just right click, go to column totals to top, and we have grand total on top. And now, since we are looking at the sum of sales, this grand total is the total sum as well. You can always right click, edit my green pill, my measure to do, for example, an average. Then the grand total also will be an average and not grand total, but this is hard coded. So I can right click, I can format this, and in the format dialog box, I can adjust my label to whatever I want. For example, average. Just pay attention that if I now change back to sum, it still says average in here because it's hard-coded. So we need to then adjust this label again or just click clear down here. So we're looking at grand total. If I now drill down to product name, go to my data pane and also add in the date, make sure that I get all of them inside of the same view. I can now go to analytics again. I can go to totals and you see that I can both add subtotals and I can add row grand totals popping up on the right hand side. We can move this to the left, the same as we can move the grand total to the top if we want. And then if I have multiple levels of data, maybe I even have the category in here and maybe the ship mode. Then you can decide if I right click on any of the blue pills, should I have subtotals on whatever level? I don't want it on subcategory. You see it's ticked off, then I can just tick it off like this. So it's quite flexible on which levels that you want to have all of these totals. If I would like to get rid of all my totals now, can't right click. Well, you can, but it doesn't do anything. So if I just ordinary left click on it, I can remove this grand total. I can go over here and remove this grand total. And you can even use the analysis menu over here, go down to totals, and then you see which one is ticked off or not ticked off. At the moment, I don't have row or column totals, but I do have some of my subtotals. So I can remove or add. And in this case, I'm going to remove totals and remove all subtotals. See that when you go to this totals and start dragging, you can pick whichever you want if you only need one or two of these three. If you would like to add all, instead of dragging these in 3 times, you can just double click on totals and it will add all of your totals immediately. Let me just go back to the original setup with just the subcategory in here and no total. You've seen this probably many times. It's a bit frustrating that when I've added sum of sales, there's no label over here. If I add in profit, suddenly I see profit and sales. And this is because Tableau puts measure names and measure values into play. So if you do it like this, you only need to have sales. You can edit your filter and just get rid of profit and you have your title. So it's quite flexible and dynamic. But there's also a third way, or there's multiple ways, of course, to hack around in Tableau. If I double click here and create a ad hoc calculation called sales, which is just a text field, you see that I get my sales on top in here. Fortunately, I also get the name of the that new column that I have, but we just right click, hide field labels for columns, and we have the sales. And in this case, I also have apparently the grand total because I didn't remove it. If you like these tips and you want more, please click and subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow on my blog. See you next time.